In 1994, UFOs visited African schools. More than 60 students witnessed and encountered the barrier. Hello, viewers of Breaking News program. Dear friends, the story begins on the morning of September 16, 1994. The scorching African sun scorched the small school located more than 30 kilometers from Zimbabwe's capital, Harare. Unexpectedly, visitors from a distant place in space visited the school. This encounter was completely different from any previous encounter. These creatures bring a profound message, a warning that perhaps humanity has realized but accidentally ignored. Now, let's turn back the memories of this historic encounter. At Ariel School at 10 a.m., young students from 5 to 12 years old were laughing and joking, enjoying a bit of freedom in the middle of the lesson. Suddenly, a sudden sound rang out in the air, like the sound of a flute, attracting everyone's attention. The students looked up at the sky and were stunned by the scene before their eyes. 5 strange disc-like objects emitting bright red light floating high above. The children watched in amazement as the objects appeared and disappeared. Suddenly, one of them separated and began to descend, landing on a hill a few dozen meters away, just outside the school campus. Even though this area was overgrown with thorn bushes and weeds and was not allowed to approach, curiosity won out and the children rushed towards it. Upon arriving, the whole group of students were even more surprised when a small figure suddenly appeared inside the flying saucer. This creature is about 90 centimeters tall, with an elongated, pale face and large black eyes. It was wearing a tight black outfit. To the children's surprise, the creature began to move forward. At the same time, a second creature also appeared on top of the ship and looked down. Some students ran away in panic while others stood still, observing the strange creatures, as well as being observed by them. Something strange happened. The children began to feel an invisible communication, as if by telepathy. Some children saw images of environmental disasters around the world, while others saw the bare earth. No trees, no air left to breathe. It's as if these creatures are trying to warn children about the planet's bleak future if humans continue to destroy the environment. Some children saw polluted oceans, while others received a direct warning about the excessive use of technology, that we should not develop technology too much because it can lead to destruction of our planet. Inside the school, a mid-morning meeting of teachers and administrative staff is taking place. The children's screams echoed in, but they just thought it was a naughty joke between the children as usual. They were unaware of the chaos going on outside. There is also the mother of a student who is volunteering at the school's cafeteria. When the children ran in panic, screaming about flying objects and strange little creatures, she just thought they were playing tricks to get food, so she ignored them. About 15 minutes later, the strange creatures returned to the ship and disappeared into the sky. After break, students excitedly told teachers what they had witnessed. However, teachers only told students not to spread rumors. At the end of the day, students have the weekend off and nothing seems to happen. But things are not that simple. Monday morning, the school phone rang continuously. Parents worriedly asked what happened to their children. According to information, some students were psychologically affected after the fateful Friday morning. Some children even need medical care when they return home. Some other children missed school for many days afterward. However, these are not the only calls the school receives. Amid the worried parents, there was a call from Ms. Cynthia Hinn, a famous African UFO researcher. According to what she told before the UFO incident visited Ariel School, she received signs of UFOs appearing in Africa. Days earlier, thousands of people across Zimbabwe and neighboring countries such as South Africa, Botswana, and Zaire reported seeing bright flashing lights and strange objects in the sky. This phenomenon is like an unprecedented giant fireworks display. Local astronomers think this is just a meteor shower, but Ms. Hinn doesn't think so. Many people have revealed details about seeing a fireball trailing a long streak of light in the sky. Some people tell even more strange stories. A woman shared with local press that around 7 p.m., while I was sitting on the lawn, I saw a round object with many lights floating above my house. It's definitely not an airplane because it's too round. Another person described an encounter with a similar object. It is shaped like a disc and has bright colors. Maybe it's a spacecraft or satellite device. I'm not sure what it is. Ms. Hinn also received news that air traffic controllers at Harare Airport had recorded unusual activity on radar at that time. A pilot in the area also reported seeing a flying object at an altitude of nearly 8,000 meters, moving from horizon to horizon in less than 4 seconds. Additionally, a local truck driver recounted encountering two strange creatures on the road that night. He described them as having pale, elongated heads with large eyes and wearing tight black suits. All of these details were carefully recorded and kept by Mrs. Hinn until she learned that UFOs had visited Ariel School. Without hesitation, she immediately contacted the school's principal, Mr. Colin Markey, and asked him to allow the students to draw what they had witnessed on Monday morning, and she will personally come to school on Tuesday to learn more. Before making the trip, Ms. Hinn received a call from Tim Lynch, a veteran reporter for the British BBC in Zimbabwe. He offered to go to school with her and talk to the students, and she agreed. At Ariel School, 2 people interviewed each student. It is a group of children diverse in culture and skin color. The children come from many different African tribes, including both white and yellow children. Yet despite their differences, they all tell the story in a unified and surprising way. It's about flying disc-shaped objects, strange creatures, and eerie sounds. In particular, the children's drawings made Mrs. Hinn extremely surprised. Although they were not asked to draw individually to avoid copying each other, all 35 children drew almost identical images, UFO-like objects and alien creatures. Perhaps it is difficult for children in rural Africa to know the concepts of flying saucers or aliens in popular culture. How could they have drawn these things in such detail if they hadn't seen them near school that day themselves? Reporter Tim Lynch, with many years of experience reporting on war situations, has faced countless dangerous situations. However, he had to admit that this was the scariest experience of his career. Together with Ms. Hinn, reporter Lynch discovered strange things that were inexplicable, and finally they decided to go to Professor Mark in America. Mr. John Edward Mark, coming from a prestigious intellectual family, is an outstanding talent. After serving in the U.S. Air Force, he graduated with honors from Harvard University and quickly became a professor, then head of the psychiatry department there. His specialty is child psychology. With extensive professional knowledge, Professor Mark is considered the person who can solve the mysteries surrounding the events at Ariel School. When receiving a call from reporter Lynch, Professor Mark did not hesitate to fly to Zimbabwe to find out what happened. When he arrived, he saw children and many adults panicking, unable to understand what was happening. You quickly start to find out what's going on. During 2 days, he spent time talking and listening to the students sharing. He skillfully uses his experience and skills to create an open, trusting space, helping students express their experiences honestly without being influenced by any direction. And indeed, they did not hesitate to share. They told Professor Mark about the strange images, sounds, feelings they experienced that day, and the alien creatures and unidentified flying objects. Some children even said they somehow communicated with these creatures. Mark guessed that it was telepathic. The most surprising thing is the message the children received during this communication process. One child shared, "I think they are trying to tell us that the world will perish if we do not know how to appreciate and protect this planet. I feel scared. All the trees will die. The air will no longer exist, and people will not be able to survive." Professor Mark has witnessed similar environmental prophecies many times in his work. He knew that in many cases, powerful messages about the threat that humans pose to the Earth's ecosystem were conveyed in clear, vivid language and images. He always wondered about the meaning of these things. Finally, 2 days of intense interviews were over. He keenly observed the body language, emotions, beliefs, and consistency in the students' testimonies. Professor Mark concluded that the way the children recounted these experiences was like people narrating a real event that happened to them. Because if you are trying to convince him of something that is not true, he can easily recognize it. And Professor Mark's initial conclusion was reinforced many years later, when filmmaker Randall Nicholson accidentally learned the story of the Ariel School incident and decided to make a documentary about it in 2008. During the process, Mr. Nicholson searched for students present on that fateful Friday morning, people who had grown up and settled all over the world. If what they recount is just a product of their imagination or a mischievous joke, they will certainly retract their words when they grow up. However, he discovered that their stories remained consistent, and that they vividly described how the event had profoundly affected their lives ever since. A woman recalled that event with an emotional voice. "That face, that image, I still remember it vividly." Another person also shared with certainty, "It was huge, very powerful, and obviously completely changed my life." Mr. Nicholson, after listening to these comments, concluded that there must have been an unusual phenomenon occurring at that school. The encounter with the alien creature left such a deep impression that the children of the past, now adults, still cannot forget that special experience. It even affects their life choices later. In the case of Sanma Siddiq, she decided to pursue international relations and human rights law with the desire to fight against social injustice. Lee Sin Fields, she became a social worker, always thinking about responsibility, helping and contributing to humanity. Both Sanma and Lee Sin actively participate in conferences about aliens, sharing their stories and what they witnessed in 1994. The most special is probably the story of Emily Chin. A fateful encounter with alien creatures inspired her to become an artist, specializing in drawing images of the creatures she saw. She also said that she still regularly receives communication signals and images from these creatures, sometimes in the form of symbols, and she also expresses them through her artwork. Thank you very much for taking your valuable time to watch our video today. See you again in the next videos.